Good morning, gentlemen. I realize that we are into the last few days of our course and that things just haven't gone exactly as planned. Obviously, for the entire institution, for our class, for most of us individually. We just haven't been able to function as we normally would, and maybe we'll learn a lot of lessons from this as to how to respond to situations and what's going on. But I did want to make sure that I contacted all of you with some last minute hints and direction about what I've asked you to do to round out the course. I'm really sorry we could not get together on some live sessions, but I didn't get an awful lot of response from people on timing, on which technology to use. This is not to make any excuses. It was just hard to coordinate, and I fell back on some very traditional methods of online education, and they have worked for the most part, but I'd like to augment it with this little talk on a couple of things, and I'll probably do a couple more over the next few days. And before I even do that, I'd just like to also mention that I am completely available by email, just or in any other means that we need to do something differently. Please contact me over these next couple of days as we go through this last week of class and into next week with a final exam period, and I will determine when I have to enter grades and things like that. So that will be taken care of. So that's the logistical part. Also, too, I don't want anybody to fear anything about passing or failing the course. You've all earned the right to move on, and I've been pleased with the responses I have gotten. Although I may not have appeared to be active, I have been very observant of what's going on and have tried to lay out our plan as we go. Okay, so what I really want to talk about today really was the two things that we're focusing on in this last kind of comprehensive assignment that I created. And that was the idea of creating a budget for an athletic department, which is going to be a real challenge. And I can guarantee you there are athletic directors across America right now trying to figure this out. And that ranges everywhere from the biggest of institutions in the athletic world, the Power Five conference people, right down to the smallest of Division threes. What do I do? What are athletics going to look like? How is it going to be affected? What am I to budget for? So I have given you a couple of models there. But the one I really think that you really want to look at, there was back in a couple weeks ago in the announcements, and go back to look at it, and in the content sections, where I presented a bit of a planning model. And it starts off with a circular going around in a clockwise directional diagram about planning. And if you go to the upper right corner of that, it starts out with, place where we are. And then you move down to where we think we're going to be. Well, over here, where's our constraints? Where we ought to be? Where could we be? Where are we going to be? And where do we want to be? And that's really the kind of the pattern we follow in strategy, but it's definitely a pattern you follow in budgeting. And that's why I also provided you with some resources about budgeting and the whole process. Two things that are going to come up: budgeting and forecasting. And are they highly related? Yep, they're absolutely highly related. But the thing is, remember, when you create a budget, it's kind of a financial, a numerical plan for where you want to be, okay, where you need to be. A forecast is a plan for where you think you'll be. And which one is more important? Not going to say. It depends on whether you're strategic or tactical, okay? And the thing to remember with the forecast is forecasts take into effect what's going on right today. And it's very interesting. I actually asked this question of a different class in corporate finance. And what we really came to the conclusion was, I thought one student's response was very accurate. Because I asked the question in this way: is there ever a time when your budget and your forecast are exactly the same? And my point was, when you probably at the beginning of a fiscal year, the beginning of a planning period, you make your budget. That's also your forecast. That's where you think you want to go. That's where you know you want to go. They are pretty much that day. Let's say your fiscal year begins on July 1. On July 1, your budget and your forecast are equal. They're the same, okay? When do they become different? And the student is the one that came up with the answer. When do they become different? July 2. Okay, that's when the forecast starts to deviate because now you're dealing with reality, not dealing with where you want to be. It's where you think you're going to be, and what the planning cycle has dictated may not be what the reality cycle is dictating. So what you really have to do at that point is kind of adjust, and you're adjusting all the way along. And the other thing I wanted to make sure that we did is spend some time with is the going into and looking at the EADA reports, which is where you found, hopefully by now, your base information. This is where you will find all the data that you need to create at least a rudimentary budget. Seeing what has been spent in the past year, what are the complicated interrelationships that you're looking at, and there's some basic decisions there you're going to see. Where do the funds come from, right? And what you have to think about is constraints. Right now, we're going to be constrained by different things at different levels. So, for instance, like I said earlier, if you chose to work as a Division I school, you're going to look at a different set of constraints than a Division II. You're also going to look at a different set of purposes, right? Remember that Division I schools use athletics entirely differently, for the most part, than Division II and III. Also remember the deep resource bases are quite different at Division II and III than they are at Division I. And particularly probably the most challenged division of all is Division II. It's right in the middle with that partial scholarship model. And if a way to look at it is if you go to lists of the endowments that colleges and universities have, and you go to the list of the largest endowments of American colleges and universities. I may have mentioned this when we were on campus at one point. What you'll find is if you look at the top 25 endowments of colleges and universities across the country, what you find is probably, I think there's going to be about 20 to 21, maybe 22 Division I schools, right? 3 elite Division III schools, and no Division II schools. So Division II schools are tuition driven. So we use at Division II, and I say we because I'm speaking to you at Southern. I'm also speaking to you as a coach at a Division II school, not as the alumnus of the big Division I school where I got my first athletic experience. We use it as a different mechanism. We use it to bring students to our campus, not just to attract fans and things like that, or students who are interested in being a part of that big experience. No, we're actually looking to bring partial tuition paying, and room and board paying students to our campus. That's a different model. So the thing I wanted you to do is to maybe get your feet wet a little bit with this whole budgeting process, right? So that's where we are today. It is Wednesday morning, all right? I will try to follow this up tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, whenever I think that we need to. If you have a question, please contact me. Contact me directly. I want to talk to you. I do think we have the opportunity to close out very strongly, and I'm thanking you very much this morning for taking a look at this. Please be diligent, pay attention, make sure you've completed what we ask you to do, and everything will be okay. All right, thank you very much.